idea underpinning my talk today on the role of culture in solving Africa's problems is a summation of the story of my life. An ordinary girl who married a traditional king, the Kabaka of Buganda Kingdom, and became a queen. Buganda Kingdom is located in the south-central part of Uganda. It has over 6 million people, which is about a quarter of the country's population. Buganda's culture is still very much alive, and her relationship with the state of Uganda is a reflection of the tensions confronted by native African communities across Africa. In a Eurocentric world where native African culture is disparaged, the Baganda love their king, the Kabaka, and cherish their culture heritage. However, there's still a constant struggle between soft westernization and modernization. My last 13 years have been about resolving a riddle of embracing modernization in this fast-changing world, while at the same time retaining, cherishing, and promoting native African culture and accentuating the role that it can play in solving Africa's problems. On March 22nd, 1981, I made a journey from Entebbe in Uganda to New York City. Aged 18, I was traveling on an aeroplane for the first time in my cognitive life. So I had mixed emotions. Happiness at being reunited with my mother, who had been away most of my life, and anxiety of leaving my home country, Uganda, where I had grown up. My trip to New York, which included an overnight stay in Brussels, wasn't short an adventure for me as a first-time traveler, including missing my connecting flight the next day and having to stay an extra night in Brussels. In New York, I was met at JFK by my mother, who welcomed me to America. But even as she did so, my eyes were simply glued to the number of people who were moving up and down. I had never seen so many people in my life in one place, or quite so many yellow taxi cars in the same place. To me, the airport was extremely huge and very busy compared to Entebbe Airport, which at the time was only known for the 90-minute raid by Israeli commandos to rescue Israeli hostages that were held in Uganda by Idi Amin in 1976. I had read about the US in general and Manhattan in particular in geography lessons, but nothing in the lessons that I took back home prepared me for the sheer scale of skyscrapers. I had read about the Empire State Building, but my goodness, now here I was standing right in front of it. Once in the US, I told people that I'm only there for 5 years, and then I would head back home. Now, that was also during the time that Uganda was going through political and economic upheavals. So people could understand why my dream was to go back to such a country. They would often ask me where I was from, and I would tell them, Uganda, and they would say, Idi Amin? To which I responded, no, Uganda. At that time, I found Americans, both black and white, to be rather ignorant of Africa, as the images reflected then were about war, hunger, disease, suffering, and hopelessness. The more I heard derogatory and ignorant comments on Uganda, the more I missed home. Joining African clubs at university and starting a publication for the Ugandan community drew me closer to home. In my courses, I decided to do projects on Uganda and Africa as a whole. because I knew that one day I was heading home. Now, after 12 years in the US, I decided to go and consider opportunities back in Uganda. So I took a 6-month contract with a company there. That was 1993, and it coincided with the coronation of the current king, the Kabaka of Buganda, Mwenda Mutebi II. The coronation was a time of jubilation in the kingdom, a nostalgic time for many Ugandans, since kingdoms had been abolished in 1966, and now they were being restored after 27 years. Like most people, I wanted to be there when the king was being installed. I wanted to be part of redefining history. So I was. No, that wasn't the time that I met the king. I was just another member of the crowd. However, he did take a glimpse of me a few days later at a private party which was held in his honor. Nevertheless, it wasn't until 6 years later that he proposed. I'll save you the details for another day. But suffice to say, the proposal that he made then sealed my decision, and I accepted. It sealed my decision to return to Uganda for good. The wedding that took place on August 27, 1999, was nothing that I expected or even ever dreamt of. They say that close to 1 million people attended and millions more watched it on television. It was so big that I also got to clearly understand what happened by watching video recordings. Now, on that day, my life as an ordinary girl ceased, and I stepped into a large undefined role. I assumed responsibilities for and high expectations of the people of Uganda. Now, without knowing it then, it was the beginning of the realization of my dream. My dream to make a difference to the development of my country, as I spelled it out in my Communication for Development, a paper that I did when I was an undergraduate. And also that public service announcement, which I produced as part of my master's thesis, encouraging Ugandans to go back home and contribute to the development of the country. Now, after 18 years in the US, this was the beginning of a new chapter in my life. An exciting chapter that challenges conventional wisdom on how change can happen in the 21st century. As a queen in a traditional institution, I was placed close to the apex of a traditional culture value system in a modern world. But above all, in a position that builds my personal and the African women's collective leadership. Now, I didn't have much time to settle into my new role, not just as a wife, but as a wife of a king. There was demand on my time from different parts of the kingdom. And in addition to my expected duties, I received numerous invitations from various organizations and associations across the country to officiate at their events. Now, as the Nnabagereka of Buganda, there were opportunities and many challenges. Now, the word Nnabagereka is taken from a Luganda word, okugereka, which means to prepare, or loosely means to serve people. So henceforth, my dreams and aspirations of serving people were met. This was a major bridge in my life. But then here I was, Queen, the Nnabagereka of Buganda. I asked myself, what do I do with this stuff? Like the stuff that God placed in Abraham's hands, what do I do with my own? Now, one thing that I had to quickly adapt to when I became Nnabagereka was visiting different communities in the kingdom and the fanfare that accompanied it. Events which I attended with the Kabaka attracted masses of people who would line up along the road for hours, waiting to see their king. Children sang songs, danced, and recited poems, welcoming and praising the king and the queen. Now, these were songs and poems telling of their plight and their desire to do better. Songs reaffirming their commitment to the kingdom and determination to fight for the preservation of their culture. My travels around the country gave me a crude picture on how people lived. I saw how they had lost their sense of worth and power and hoped that someone else had to come and change their lives. I saw a poor education system where girls dropped out of school. I saw high rates of maternal mortality and poor living conditions throughout the kingdom. Not to say that everything was gloom. However, on the whole, there was a lot that needed to be done to improve the lives of our people. Then I knew that the title Nnabagereka was not enough. I had to put it to work for our people. Now, before I continue with that, we need to ask ourselves, is culture still relevant? Culture refers to the totality of inherited beliefs, traditions, values, philosophy, and knowledge of a certain society or group of people, and it influences our lives in many ways. Diverse groups of people develop diverse cultures based on their unique histories and living conditions. However, although there are diverse cultures, we are all brought together by our common humanity, Ubuntu. Now, at the end of the events that I previously mentioned, the king usually serves the cake to his people. Little girls and boys, this is usually a very special occasion, so little girls and boys and adults alike reach out eagerly to receive a piece of cake. They're usually very excited and happy to be close to the king, but most of all, to be served by him. The people's desire to be in the midst of their king and queen and turning up in large numbers to listen to what they have to say is indicative of people's search for alternatives that redefine development. They are yearning to explore how culture and their traditional institutions can open up a new chapter in their lives. Now, the emergence of strong Western administrative structures weakened the culture support system, which resulted into the decline of positive traditional value systems and failure of Western paradigms to clearly and totally deliver development in Africa. Now, as we all know, the future of the 21st century lies in Africa. Global economies are currently having their own form of new scramble for Africa. Therefore, African traditional leaders should be part of redefining alternatives and solutions for Africa and the world. As Nnabagereka, I have worked and sought to make a difference in the lives of the people of the whole country, Uganda, especially children, youth, women, and marginalized and vulnerable groups. This has been done through support in key areas such as health, education, poverty eradication, maternal health, and culture preservation. My work through the Kingdom and the Nnabagereka Development Foundation, which I founded in 2000, has challenged conventional wisdom through cutting-edge innovations such as the royal enclosure or HIGHNESS. Now, the HIGHNESS is a culture camp that connects the dots between the realities of the world we live in, Westernization, and our culture heritage. the Sakate now takes the form of 2 weeks. It's a residential camp for children between the ages of 6 and 18. And it aims to revitalize and strengthen the cultural value, the culture and moral value of our children. The program adapts culture as a positive and important foundation in self-development. Most of the children who attend this culture camp for the first time are usually apprehensive. For example, one of the girls told her parents that lessons on culture will prevent her from learning sciences in school. And a boy, about 10 years old, told his mother, that it's against his rights as a child to be taken to a culture camp. Okay. Now, after 2 weeks in the camp, the girl wanted to stay longer, and the boy couldn't wait to attend another camp the following year, and he did. Now, through Sakate, children are able to understand and appreciate both modern and cultural values, and to discern what's best for them. It instills and promotes good cultural values and practices, and fosters values of integrity, responsibility, hard work, and discipline, among others. And it's our hope that children who go through this program in the future will be able to make decisions that will steer them away from early marriages, early pregnancies, HIV/AIDS, drugs, and crime, among others. I have shared my story with many women and culture leaders. And my footsteps have therefore meant my work with the establishment of the African Queens and Women Culture Leaders Network, which is committed to promoting good cultural values and improving the lives of women and girls in Africa. My footprints have also connected with the diaspora community on how they can actively participate in redefining our development for Africa. I have also worked with UN agencies and local, regional, national, and international development and civil society organizations. My journey is work in progress, but the greatest joy that I have derived is not from the title, but what the title can do for our people. And this is what I have chosen to do. I challenge other traditional and cultural leaders to seek out opportunities to serve their people, even on a limited budget. If you have the love of your people on your side, the opportunities are limitless. Join me in the journey of challenging conventional wisdom on development paradigms that do not work for Africans in their local context. Challenging conventional wisdom on the negative role of culture in development, which has been sustained through pre-colonial and post-colonial periods. Believing in a great future and hoping that our energies of today will yield a better tomorrow. With foresight and continued commitment, together we can face the challenges that facing our children, who are the future guardians of this planet. Challenge or change has never happened with the fear and anxiety of challenging conventional wisdom. Change happens with those who dare to be different, those who take the first dreaded steps ahead of the line to challenge the norm. Thank you very much.